Hey everyone, Alan here, and I've decided to contribute to Forever Will Films' third annual Why Are You an Antinatalist contest. It's the 2017 edition. I'll be describing EFILism, although to begin I will briefly go through antinatalism. Antinatalism is a philosophical stance that assigns a negative value to birth. That is the definition that I have found to populate by default. The negative value assigned is, for one, describing the negative value of the suffering that the feeling organism being brought into existence is going to experience, as well as the harm that that feeling organism is going to cause other feeling organisms to experience in the process. So as far as antinatalism contrasted with EFILism, one way someone could describe this is that EFILism is the philosophy of antinatalism applied to all species of sentient life, and emphasizing an asymmetry towards negative intrinsic value, implicating a cosmic value deficit or deficient qualitative reality. It posits that the universe is functionally inefficient, thus representing unintelligent design, and that persistent generation of sensations entails the greatest problem in the universe. Furthermore, neither antinatalism nor negative utilitarianism, which largely logically underlies the ethical framework of EFILism, consist of certain other key underpinnings of the philosophical model. For instance, the conceptual explanation of the theory of evolution, for example, where the irrational process is described as particularly representative of the unrefined dynamics of consumption, reproduction, parasitism, addiction, etc. Furthermore, that such is simply understood as an extension of the historical evolution of energy and consequent gradual complexification of matter, in essence from the fundamental forces of rudimentary universal physics to more intricate configurations of chemistry to complex chemistry, molecularly modified into some kind of abiogenic coalescence, followed by the evolutionary emergence of sentient consciousness, etc. A rather mechanical view, so to speak, with negative implications for sentience given the lack of some intelligent construct, deity, or innately rational regulating force. Within the EFIList model, causal determinism is another explicit constituent of the context of reality. Causal determinism is basically defined as the idea that every event is necessitated by antecedent events and conditions together with the laws of nature. And I've mentioned before, but when initially reflecting upon the fact that human beings, as with all forms of energy and matter in reality, are deterministically bounded, I found that understanding determinism can be a source of patience or at least empathy in some ways. Although unconditional tolerance of irrational, destructive behavior should not follow from said understanding. Rather, we should keep it in mind and simply approach people in the best manner possible with an intention of becoming one of the more constructive variables within their environment, thereby ultimately maximizing the probability of more productive behavioral outputs from them. Someone has responded to that with something to the effect of, well, yes, I agree on a practical level, but the real mindfuck of determinism is that whether or not we act in this productive manner is itself determined, including me typing the sentence. And my reply is yes, and when discussing determinism, metacognitive reflections on points like that which you just mentioned can be a bit of a mindfuck, so to speak. And I essentially stated that some of these topics, within the context of determinism, deeply reflecting on them, can be a naughty thing to do. The user I was engaged with then asked, so I take it you don't think that this naughtiness, however strange, is actually a problem? And my reply was, it can be seen as a bit of a conundrum, I suppose. However, the knowledge of it is a variable that will likely maximize the probability that a given human who understands it will end up becoming a more functional variable in the value equation defining the end state of the value reality of the universe. It's worth noting that causal determinism does not rule out ethical accountability. I could delve into the details of how brains that render decisions still have as an available resource for those decision formulations, information, and how, while reality is determined, a human brain is still capable of logical processing and analyzing the integrity of ideas that it becomes aware of, thus enabling the mind-ware of that brain to engage in a process of filtering out evidentially unjustified, illogical ideas and so on. but that would be a whole nother video unto itself, so I'm not going to dive into all of that in this video. So, continuing on with the primary subject, antinatalism could often imply something like a value asymmetry, although EFILism probably more definitively implies a zero-sum qualitative reality, derived from the axiological theory of the intrinsic value property manifest in sensations. These are just some elements of the overarching model of EFILism that would probably rob the term of its robust meaning if excluded from a thorough, accurate definition. They are basically some of the implied sub-concepts of EFILism, is what I would argue, and many of them are not necessarily associated or implicitly contained within antinatalism, sentiocentric or not. There are probably some animal rights positions that would accompany the EFIList philosophy as well, or at least deductively flow from it, while on the other hand, there are likely many self-described antinatalists, probably not sentiocentric antinatalists, but antinatalists nonetheless, who would not posit some of those positions as requisite components of what antinatalism denotes or entails. Furthermore, EFILism lays out a relatively explicit instructional imperative for meeting ethical obligations. In order to be functionally productive in one's existence or actualize a good life, one must prevent more harm or value destruction than they cause. We are all individual variables that will determine the end result of the value equation as it plays out. It will either be a negative or a positive in individual effect. The value exchanges that we trigger are indeed a subset of the full set of value interactions. Some factors are outside of the boundaries of our control, so to speak. However, collectively, we do have significant influence in the equation. Assertively transmitting vital information into the mind space of others, arguing the argument, efficiently and effectively convincing and persuading other minds, means that the qualitative reality's rendering process will be composed of more intelligent factors than otherwise. Anyhow, success entails optimizing the net quality of sentient life, while failure entails degrading it. Because life is a constituent of the universe, this more fundamentally and aptly is described as optimizing or degrading the universe as a whole, and affecting the sentient state of the universe is the only actual way to do that, which, more or less, is much of what is meant by the qualitative reality. So, an overall negative or positive impact on reality defines ethical performance for a given human existence. The universe is not in a degraded state when there is no sentient reality. When there is, the universe is degraded as negative sensations then manifest and continually accumulate as time goes on. If the asymmetry were bent towards the positive, then procreation would be ethically sound and, in fact, preferable to the absence of sentience. However, with this being opposite to the actual case, a universe without sentience is better than one with it. Ideally, I would have preferred to be more efficient and effective in explaining the aforementioned sub-concepts, but due to the time and that the deadline is nearly here for this contest, this is what I'm able to produce right now. Many of those aforementioned sub-concepts have entire sets of arguments further explaining their propositions. Delving into all of those arguments would take quite a while in one video, so I am more simply expressing what EFILism essentially posits and many of the principal reasons as to why this brain finds EFILism to be a sensible description of reality. I intend to elaborate on some key elements that predicate the philosophy in the future, so if anyone is interested in that, you can probably rest assured that such material will be posted in time. Thanks for your attention, and until next time.